good day from Anagalactic. It is the 9th day of February, a Sunday here in Chico, California. We have a special presentation today. I'm going to close this little window here that we used yesterday to investigate, well, the heart of things. What we're after is truly universal dynamics is the goal. That has not been clearly perceived in modern physical science, that we're seeking a universal force dynamic system. Well, that was discovered in 1745. One of the most amazing of a list of unguarded secrets that's just sitting there staring at human beings forever. I would have to rank this particular insight along with several others of just incredible importance that you simply will never know about unless you listen to me or someone else like me, who is just, through whatever fortuitous or serendipitous circumstances, could be destiny, fate, karma, it could be hard work, it could be luck. Some people just say the universe is just a roll of the dice, which Einstein absolutely detested, that nonsensical anti-scientific attitude. No, everything is rational in the universe, except for humans. Humans are the odd man out. Now, today we're going to go to the human side, which is always a good thing to do whenever you can schedule it, because if you get lost in math or you get lost in theory, you may end up like one of these knuckleheads like Brian Greene or Neil deGrasse Tyson or a list of 1,000 others who just spout nonsense for money. Now, of course, if you hear the word money and your eyes brighten up, well, then you may want to just abandon truth and rational logic and the way to heaven and universal understanding or whatever nonsense we think we're after as scientists of the highest caliber. Well, you may just want to go right back to the old satanic, hellish death system and just pursue money so you can, have some fun before you croak. No, we take the long view. And humans still remain humans, and you and I will remain humans. At least until the moment of death, we're never going to get out of the trap in which we were sprung as little embryos who just came out and became toddlers and learned to walk, and then we become high and mighty gods, and then we die and disappear forever. Maybe that's your philosophy. I don't think anybody cares, because philosophy nobody ever cares about. Philosophy is only for a single human being. You know why? You can't share it. And if you don't believe me, join a few churches, as I did over a period of 30 years, and try to convince them of something that you can't actually prove. Now, in my case, I use the Bible to support my claims, but it turns out nobody believes in the Bible. There isn't anybody outside of the Islam nations who believes in the Bible. Christians, by definition, do not believe in anything except themselves. Now, we want to turn to a man who is considered to be a hedonist. He was at one time considered to be a pornographer. That was by the state of Florida, representing, of course, the United States idiocy system. He wrote some of the most magnificent literature of all time. His name is Henry Valentine Miller. He very rarely used his middle name, Valentine, but that was apparently his middle name because I've seen him mention it a few times. I've read every single word that Henry Miller ever wrote. There could be some, you have to leave out the letters because there's a slew of letters that he sent. He and Annis Nin were apparently lovers. She helped him out greatly when he was starving in Paris for 10 years. I don't know if she helped him the whole 10 years, but Anais Nin is how you actually pronounce her name. She's Spanish, and she's one of the most amazing women writers of all time. Well, in this funny world where people somehow come together like foxes in the Arctic to mate, Henry Miller and Anais Nin found each other, and boy, did they get along well. Never got married. Could say they're hedonists. Oh my God, those depraved, immoral fuckers. Well, line up, because you're next in line right after you're done judging, and you're going to be sorry you judged anybody. That's the true Christianity. Don't ever. Now, I have to criticize positions. But today we're going to look at Henry Miller and just a little bit of his legacy. And I hope you enjoy this. This is really off the beaten track of our science projects. Here's a comment that I just left. I don't know if you really care to see that. But what I'm going to do is switch to another screen here and look up Pons Asinorum and Henry Miller. So I'm going to start over so you can see what I'm doing. I'll go to Google Advanced Search. I'll expand this a little so I think you can see it better. And we're going to type in Henry Miller, the famous American author that you may never have heard of because the true greats are kept out of the limelight. Ralph Waldo Emerson, whom we'll come to in a moment, is my favorite author. Henry Miller is my second favorite author. These are unquestionably the two greatest authors in American literate history. Henry Miller is so far beyond any other writer. Although it is the beauty pageant contest, you may have your own subjective opinion. Oh my God, you want to name somebody else? Well, this is my channel, so I say Henry Miller is the greatest. And that's the way it goes in subjectivity. Nobody can argue with me. You can try, you will fail. Henry Miller is the greatest. Now, Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote in quite a different vein. His book, Nature, is immortal. It's way beyond anything the Greeks ever wrote, anything the Germans or the English or French ever wrote, the Italians, Spanish. Nobody compete with Ralph Waldo Emerson. You know why? He was a scientist. He didn't talk about fiction. Henry Miller fictionalizes reality, which is another way of approaching things. What Ralph Waldo Emerson did is he rationalized humanism. Just as Aristotle attempted to do, the Platonists and Aristotelians are supposedly at odds throughout time. No, they're not. And nothing is at odds to a man who sees correctly. All right, so let's look up Henry Miller, but that's not all we want. We want Pons Asinorum. I know it sounds funny. I'm sure that's why he used the term, but he also knew what it meant. And let's see. This is called the Bridge of the Asses, which is an ancient paradox. So let's see what Henry... Okay, here's AI overview. Now, I'm not sure this is entirely centered. I'm just going to read it to you. That's Henry. And that... Henry Miller, Pons Asinorum, the AI overview, which is Google's chatbot, has... there isn't much information about Henry Miller and Pons Asinorum. Well, then AI overview isn't quite human. There's a ton on it. But here's some information about Henry Miller and his writing. And you may want to see, I'll just read this. Henry Miller was an author who wrote semi-autobiographical novels that blended storytelling with philosophy, mysticism, and social commentary. That's pretty accurate. His books were known for their explicit sexual content. Let me tell you something. We're talking about circa 1930s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. At that time, there was still such a thing as sensitivity to what might be called explicit sexual content. But by today's standards, by the 21st century, Henry Miller is grade school reading. Henry Miller is grade school reading. You can turn on any movie in the modern age and see pretty clearly, or listen to the comedians, or even read the writings, that sex is no longer out of bounds. And what Henry Miller wrote about sex was just as insightful and intelligent and purposeful and valuable as everything else he wrote. He was not as the state, I think, is the state the state legal system responsible for what books can be published in Florida, because it's reserved to the states to decide this. But then there's something that I don't know how politics actually works. I don't know anything about politics. But his books were banned in the United States. Well, that tells you that the United States is a depraved, decadent, horrific society of noodleheads. That it was not. It was called pornographic, and that has, of course, since been overturned. Henry Miller, none of his books are banned anywhere, as far as I know. All right. He was trying to contribute to the liberalization of sexual discussion in American writing. Not explicitly, he wasn't, but Chat AI Bot is not a human. It's a goddamn bunch of thinker toys revolving around on an electrical current. So The Tropic of Cancer was Miller's most famous novel. It's not as racy as Tropic of Capricorn, which has a whole chapter called The Land of Fuck. And I'm allowed to say fuck. But 50 years ago, I would not really get away with saying the word fuck out loud. There's a lot of tight control on which words you're allowed to use now, but sex is off the list. Alright, so Miller's books were banned in the U.S. until 1961. Whatever. He was married 5 times, yes. The Tropic of Capricorn is by far his best book. Henry Miller disagrees with me. He thinks that Sexus, Plexus, and Nexus are his masterpiece. Henry is wrong. Okay, I don't care what Henry said. I'm the professor here. Or, a beauty pageant contest judge. Tropic of Capricorn. Let's see what Weebly has to say here. Well, this is our first hit. See if we can find out about Pons Asinorum. There's a Tropic of Capricorn. Oh my god, it's the whole book. Well, I didn't even know this. Well, by George, it's the entire frickin' book. Well, now we can use Command F. And if this is text, let's see if it is. Oh, it is. It's text. So I'll use Command F, which is my browser's way. You may not see that. I'm typing in Pons Asinorum to find out what Henry said about it. This is, indeed, the Bridge of the Asses. And I don't see that it's finding any hits. It actually does not find any hits in here. Maybe this is just the first chapter. Let's see. We'll scroll through this to the end. Now that looks to be the whole book. Look at that. This is the Japanese version. Oh no, that may be Chinese. Well, whatever. We got his whole book here. I don't know why it's not finding it. Let me see. Oh, here we go. Climbing the stairs, I would run my fingers up her crotch, which used to make her whinny like a horse. Okay, well, I think you see he can be quite racy. He doesn't do it very well. Yes, he does. He considers sex to be part of life, so he just treats it naturally. Well, you better be natural. So that didn't work. Let's see if we can get another. Pons Asinorum, you see Henry Miller. Let me make sure you can see that. I'm not sure you can. All right, well, let's do this. I'm going to just do a quick adjustment here because I've learned how to use my tools somewhat. And we'll narrow this up. We'll pull this out. We'll stretch this over. And we'll realign this. And I think you can see the whole page now. Let's see if we can do this. And then stretch it down. All right, well, I think we got enough there, don't you? Now let's take a look at that. Pons Asinorum is referring to an ancient Greek conundrum, a paradoxical sort of a story about a bridge and a pair of asses, I believe. I think you can see why Henry chose that. So we want to see, let's see what Asinorum.com. Well, that sounds like a good link for what we're after, which is the actual nature. Here it is. Oh, it is from track. I don't know why this did not show up in the search engine. I mean, the search. Every schoolboy knows that the Pons Asinorum is not to be crossed except by 2 white donkeys led by a blind man. I don't know why it is so, but that's the rule as it was laid down by old Euclid. He was so full of knowledge, the old buzzard, that one day, I suppose purely to amuse himself, he built a bridge which no living mortal could ever cross. I hope you see the analogy with modern science. He called it the Pons Asinorum because he was the owner of a pair of beautiful white donkeys. So attached was he to these donkeys that he would let nobody take possession of them. Again, modern science, wow. And so he conjured a dream in which he, the blind man, would one day lead the donkeys over the bridge and into the happy hunting ground for donkeys. Well, and here's a large geometric diagram with a lot of Spanish, tu comentario, and that's about it. So that wasn't a great deal of help, but at least we... So he's well known in Europe. He's unknown in America because America, I'm not even going to comment, because Henry really did it all. Okay, this is the Anarchist Library. This might have some intelligent people in it. If they're anarchists, they're probably on the right track, but don't follow anybody. Oh, Robert Anton Wilson. He's one of the greatest comedy writers. I've never had a chance to really read a lot of Robert Anton Wilson. And you may or may not have heard of him, but at one time he was a very popular writer. He wrote the Illuminatus trilogy in conjunction with Robert Shea, as you can see there. And it was hilarious stuff from everything my friends told me. But I found it to be... It wasn't to my liking. Not that I thought it was bad. I just didn't have time. All right, the Pons Asinorum, Henry Miller, here we are. Let's see what Patrick Vallas might have to tell us about the secret of the Pons Asinorum. Of course, we could look it up in Wikipedia, but isn't this more fun? Henry was not a scientist. Neither was Jesus, okay? Let's keep things... Oh dear, well, I don't know how we're going to find anything in there. So that is not so great. The Hoover Institution, Pons Asinorum, Henry Miller, Pons Asinorum, Henry Miller, Pons Asinorum, Henry Miller. Okay. Here's some images. There's the Pons Asinorum. I think you can see it is a geometric construct. Let's use Wikipedia, see if we can find out what Wikipedia says, so we can get a handle. This is due to a comment that I got from a listener to this station. Pons Asinorum, all right. Let's see what it says. In geometry, the theorem that the angles opposite the equal sides of an isosceles triangle are themselves equal. All right, equal sides, equal opposite angles. That does not appear to be a conundrum to me. The isosceles triangle theorem, the converse is true. Pons Asinorum, oh, here we go. Yeah. Let's expand this just a little so we get a good grip on the Pons Asinorum. Well, promote this just a little bit. I hope you can see that. Let me scroll up, and I think you can see there that if we just extend this a little bit more, we can get, there we go, look at that. All right, that's all we need. Pons Asinorum is also used metaphorically for a problem or challenge which acts as a test of critical thinking, referring to the ass's bridge's ability to separate capable and incapable reasoners. Oh, okay. Its first known usage in this context was in 1645. And now we need to expand this all the way to cover my pretty face. You don't need to see me every single second. And let's see if we can get a good look at this. And all I need to do now is press Control minus, and I think you can see the whole thing. All right, I'm going to read. You can't read the very far edge. Let me just Command minus one more time, see if that helps. Well, we almost got it, but I'll read this for you. Not much. We don't want to be tedious here. There are two common explanations for the name Pons Asinorum. The simplest being that the diagram used resembles a physical bridge. All right, yeah, they see that it's... Maybe you can see it, I can see it, but the more popular explanation is that it is the first real test in the elements of the intelligence of the reader and functions as a bridge to the harder propositions that follow. All right, why? Carl Friedrich Gauss supposedly once suggested that understanding Euler's identity might play a similar role. That is, as a touchstone, a test. Like if you're trying to go from college to university and you need to pass an entrance exam just to see if you're ready to go in, that would be the Pons Asinorum. All right, this would be a test to see if someone could become a first-class mathematician. All right, Euclid's statement of the Pons Asinorum includes a second conclusion that if the equal sides of the triangle are extended below the base, then the angles between the extensions and the base are also equal. All right? And then you could read this article. Pappus of Alexandria gives a much shorter proof. Oh my God, I mean, well, there's your Pons Asinorum. It just goes on and on and on. Let's see if they mention Henry Miller in here. A bunch of other people, but not Henry Miller. So, for instance, we have here Thomas Campbell, a poet, wrote a humorous poem called Pons Asinorum, where a geometry class assails the theorem. As a company of soldiers might charge a fortress, the battle was not without casualties. Well, that's because not everybody can get in. John Stuart Mill, the economist, called Ricardo's Law of Rent the Pons Asinorum of economics. I think we have a pretty good grip on what that phrase or term means. Nothing about Henry Miller in here, so we will desist from that for a moment, and we're getting near the end. I hope you enjoyed this brief video about Pons Asinorum and Henry Miller. We got to read the quote where Henry uses it, and then we got to notice why Henry might have used it, which is because of a metaphorical use of the term the bridge of the asses, referring to the fact that the opposite sides of two sides of a isosceles triangle, whose angles are equal, will have sides that are equal. I think we all learned that in school, but who knew the depths of philosophy that could be extracted from that? Back to channel content. Here's my latest quadrature of space-time, 100 minutes in 2 parts. I've got 6 views and 1 like, and it's only less than a day old. So that's good, and that's where that... It's not where that comment originated, but once again, I hope you enjoyed this, and we want to keep this brief because it's not on science. The next thing you hear after this will be in the next video, a fuller discussion of the transformation of ancient science, which in 2022 began to change over to modern science due to my discoveries. And if you think that that's megalomaniac, don't think that I haven't noticed that. That's why I still drink beer, to stay human. You have to stay human. Try to solve your moral dilemma, which you cannot do scientifically, but you can get all the advice you need directly from the universe by looking up at the night sky. There's nothing more direct than that. If you do that, you'll make it to heaven. You know why? Because that'll change the course of your thought processes toward heaven, simply by looking. Everything else you do in astronomy and astrophysics will be gravy, icing, which you don't want to mix, but you can have gravy with your turkey and then icing on your cake. You can die happy. You don't have to be afraid. Yeshua came in order to remove the fear of death, which Diabolos had woven over the face of the earth. That's the story of the Bible, the story of the success of the man from heaven who was forced to leave because, well, I'll just say an unnameable group of people to whom Yeshua just coincidentally belonged, his own people murdered him so that he could not save the earth. Well, I think you see what's happening on the world scene. Russia and Ukraine are still at it, but directly south, in the old Levant, nothing has changed. Because of what our brilliant President Franklin Delano Roosevelt and Joseph Jugashvili Stalin, with a drunken Churchill just listening, probably drunk at the table at Lavadia, Yalta, Krim, Ukraine, decided to make the UN